Welcome to episode 5 of Next Generation.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the 5th edition of Nintendo Power featuring Ninja Gaiden on the cover.
We'll also be taking a look at Adventure Island, and Laurel's going to give us some tips on how to survive Zelda II.
Let's jump right in.
Up we have Adventure Island, a side-scrolling platformer game where you guide Master Higgins on his adventure to save the princess, I think?
Yeah, that's what I remember reading.
So, what did you think of Adventure Island, Laurel?
With most other games, it's kind of like you're introduced to this motive or quest that you have to do. And most of the time it's kind of like darker, but this one was really like lighthearted and it had a lot of bright colors. So that was a difference from some of the other games that I've played.
Yeah, so this was one of my favorite games growing up. So I played a ton of this one. And it always had kind of like a Mario sort of feel to it with, I don't know, a lot of similarities, you know, both being a platform game. This had the Invincible upgrade with the like little fairies you could get, and Mario having the power stars, you know, moving platforms, things like that, same sort of thing. And yeah, it just definitely had like a sort of Mario feel for me. What did you think of the different power-ups, or what power-ups did you get?
I got the hatchet thing that you get in the beginning. And then at one point I did get the skateboard, and then I died immediately after, and I didn't have a save state with it, so then I lost it forever.
The skateboard definitely takes some getting used to, because it's got that feature where you're always moving forward, and the best you can do is slow down, but you can't actually stop. So it could be tricky, especially if you're getting close to like an edge where there's a drop off or something, and you're trying to wait for an enemy to time their jump just right to be able to jump over them with the skateboard. What other power-ups did you get?
And then I honestly don't know what they are. I'm pretty sure they're rocks. They might be a flame thing of some sort. I looked in the manual and it didn't say what they were, so
I always thought of them as like a fire thing, but maybe that's because I came from playing Mario and I thought about the fireballs in Mario, and they're kind of red colored, so that's why I always had thought that. But I think those were the main power-ups outside of the fairy that gave you invincibility.
Yeah, right, the fairy too.
I think this game came from the arcade, but I don't actually know a lot about that one. I only ever played it on the NES. Oh, so then the other interesting thing too was the food.
Yeah.
So there was you got points for the food, and then also there was a kind of a health bar that would run out.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned you didn't even notice, and actually for a long time playing it, I didn't really notice that either. I just thought the food you would gather was just a points sort of thing. But that's an interesting mechanic of having it refill your health as you go, sort of thing, and having to maintain that.
Right.
So
I was pretty good at collecting most of the food that I saw, so I didn't actually run out ever or notice.
Yeah. So that wraps up our look at Adventure Island. Next up, we're taking a look at Ninja Gaiden, a classic on the NES, and a game I didn't play a lot growing up, but I definitely played at friends' houses. It's a side-scrolling platformer game. I think it's definitely considered one of the harder NES games. So what did you think of Ninja Gaiden, Laurel?
It was definitely difficult to get the hang of, though once you've played through bits of it, it gets easier after you do. Just the controls in general can be kind of hard to learn, but once you know them, it's way easier.
Yeah, so it definitely has that wall bouncing, jump back and forth mechanic. It was one of the first games I remember seeing a lot of that. And even like a lot of the modern games end up having that now, and it always reminds me of this game, because I think this is the first place that I ever saw that sort of grabbing onto the wall mechanic in a game. Seems like it has a pretty good variety of enemies. There was the little kind of bouncing dogs that come across the screen pretty quickly. I think that was a good addition. So it wasn't just all like human type people that you're fighting that are just standing, walking around. So that kind of gave it some variety. It had some pretty good power-ups. It sounds like you didn't really get to use a lot of those, but there's the throwing stars and some other different weapons that you can gain that it lets you use by pushing up and B. That was kind of another interesting thing with the NES is, I mean, you had a very limited number of buttons.
Yeah.
So, and usually, you had definitely one for attack and one for jump, usually, especially on platformers. So then, if they wanted to have another secondary weapon, they had to kind of come up with a way to do that. And often it was, a combination like up and B, or you would have to hit select and select a different weapon maybe, and then go back and to be able to use that weapon. So that had some variety in the direction then. How the screens could scroll in the different levels.
Yeah.
But how many levels did you end up seeing, do you think?
I think I got to stage 2-2.
Okay. Yeah, I think 2 is one of the vertical, or has the vertical sections, right?
Yeah.
So you've got kind of where you're climbing up ladders and things.
Yeah.
Different enemies there. And it does a pretty good job of kind of giving a different feel to the different levels as you're progressing through. And then so I guess one big thing we should mention, obviously, with this game is the kind of story and the cutscenes.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that?
When I let the intro scene play, because in some games it's interesting to see what backstory it gives. And the intro scene is kind of stunning, because in most NES games, the graphics aren't super great, but I feel like they did a really good job of doing the just showing the eyes and then the Yeah, they definitely really tried to get that cinematic feel for what they could do on the NES. And that's sort of one of the things this game is known for, is bringing in the cutscenes as part of video games. And obviously you see that a lot more in games these days, but back then that was a fairly new thing. So I guess overall that, there's the sort of the cinematic feel of the game, and then definitely was known as a pretty hard game. And overall I think is a game I definitely enjoyed playing. So anything else you have about Ninja Gaiden? I probably will go back and play the entire thing, because I got way too much footage, because I was actually invested in trying to beat the levels. So
alright, well, good luck with that.
The jump spell can also be used to avoid conflict with some of the stronger enemies. In some cases, especially before your character has achieved very high levels of experience, it's better to leap over that Ironnuckle. If you happen to be close to an elevator while encountering an Ironnuckle, you can get on the elevator, go up slightly, and hover just above the Ironnuckle, then move off just as the Ironnuckle lunges towards the elevator. One strategy that we found works very well in fighting the durable Ironnuckle is to crouch down and jump and jab as quickly as possible. The quicker the better. At Palace 2 and beyond, you can jab the visor of the Ironnuckle statue to either produce red magic potion or make the statue come to life. If the potion appears, you can use the life spell to replenish your life, and then take the potion to replenish your magic. If the statue comes to life, you can defeat the Ironnuckle for 100 experience points, leave the palace, and come back. When you return, you can repeat the same process.
Thanks for watching Next Generation.
If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe.